This isn't gonna work well.
It's fun.
If you're thinking about getting into model railroading or you're already an addict, boy, do we have a project for you. In this episode, we're gonna tweak the benchwork a little bit and we're gonna lay out the main line. That sounds like a lot of work, so why not get started right now? Hey, welcome to my hobby room and to the Brown Smith Railroad. This show is about a regular schmo building his model railroad. I show you all my tips, my tricks, and my tragedies all right here for everyone to see. And it's really a lot of fun. Great community being built around this channel. So if you're into that sort of thing, make sure and subscribe. And then don't forget to push that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. Hey, just before we really get rolling, a little bit of housekeeping. For those of you who love our Track Smack live broadcast on Saturday mornings, keep something in mind. It has moved to a new channel called Track Smack right here on YouTube. So next Saturday, if you tune in here to find it, you're not gonna find it. You'll find a little thing that says you're in the wrong place. So jump on over to that channel. Go ahead and subscribe now if you want, and I will see you Saturday morning. Okay, so let's get to work on today's project, which is getting this main line laid out. Now, many of you know I do a show for Model Railroader magazine, for Model Railroader Video Plus, and it's the Portsmouth Project Build. As part of cutting all that in, I had to go through and screw the OSB down on top of the layout. It's integral to the structure of the layout. As you know, it sticks out 24 inches from the wall and it's on shelf brackets. I don't have any legs underneath it. And that kind of makes it a little flimsy, except for what I did to really tighten that up. Now, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna sneak in a little piece, some highlights from the video I did for MRVP relative to that and hope we don't get caught. So let's just cut over to there. When we come back, we're gonna lay out the main line. Why bother putting glue at all if you're gonna use white glue? So we'll use this stuff and it'll really grab onto it. It's gonna be pretty cool. We're also gonna use two different drywall screws here. I've got these number 6 by 1 5/8 drywall screws that are gonna screw that plywood down. And I got some number 8 by 2 1/2 inch drywall screws that I'm gonna set in the back at an angle, and hopefully it will cinch this thing up against the wall so we get rid of that wobbliness, because I don't think that's gonna work for model railroad. Glue on, such as it is. For this piece, we'll go ahead and just use these number 6 by 1 5/8. Okay, I got all the screws in there we're gonna put in, but now it's time for the reinforcement screws we put in the back. And what that's just done is it's gone through the plywood, through the framing, and I actually have a shear wall back here. It's all plywood behind the drywall. I can feel this thing stiffening up. So I'm gonna just go through and keep putting those in, and then we'll go screw down the one for the port. Okay, time for the moment of truth. We just glued this down and I put those diagonal screws in the back of the layout. Now take a look at this. It's not hardly deflecting at all. Even if I put a bunch of weight on it like that, you can see it just sits there. And here's why I think this happens. You've got an L bracket back there, right, against the wall, and way out 2 feet is where I've got the end of the bench work. So by putting weight here on the end, what's happening is it pulls away from the wall like this. I'm exaggerating it a little bit, and it certainly doesn't look like my fingers, but pulls away like this. By putting those diagonal screws in right at the top to something secure, it doesn't allow that to happen. Lets the bracket do what I've designed it to do, which is support the layout, and again, it's really solid. Well, I think I might be in breach of contract right now, but I'm pretty sure our good friend David Pop over at MRVP, the executive producer, will cut me some slack for sharing that with you. He's a model railroader like we are. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to MRVP, you gotta do it, people. Our friend David Pop's over there, our friend Kathy Millett's over there, Cody Gribno does some awesome stuff over there. The whole gang, and you can find the State Line Kit Bash Challenge over there, and I'm a part of that, and it was totally a lot of fun. So head on over there if you haven't. Well, anyway, now I think what we want to do is just get to work on laying out this main line. So let's get on it. To get started, we need to do a little bit of bench work, and here's why. When I was cutting in the port, I noticed this seam right here had 2 problems, and that's 2 more than we need when you're gonna have railroad tracks going across it. One of the problems was this. It was sitting like this. Just like that, right there. Well, unless we're gonna put a bridge across there or something, that doesn't work, right? Second of all, where the 2 edges of OSB mate, it was like this. It was like offset, I don't know, whatever. So what I did is I took my 32-inch level and clamped it into place so it made a flush edge across there, and I was able to check level, and it was level. That was amazing. Clamped it in, then took a 1x3 and screwed it down to the face of it, took the clamps off and everything. Boom, I had this perfect piece of bench work. Well, yeah, it doesn't work for me because I'm getting ready to put the fascia on this thing. I didn't feel like dealing with how it pops out, it goes back in. It doesn't work for me. So here's where my thoughts were. A, I have screwed this OSB down in the back, screwed it all in place, and it's really solid. So I took a chance. I got my drill and I drilled some 1/4-inch holes through the framework right underneath the seam. Then I took some 20 by 3.5-inch long bolts with some fender washers and put it through. In a couple cases, it was tight enough where I had to tap it in with a hammer, but I wanted that. I don't want any play in the framework where the bolts pass through. So I tapped them in, tightened it down, and then it was time for the big moment of truth. And the moment of truth was I came over here with my drill motor. I started popping drywall screws out of this piece of wood on the front, and when I got to the seam and pulled those screws, boom, it was fine. It's perfect. It's flat across there and it looks awesome. One problem, I don't know, when I screwed down the OSB some kind of way, there's still an edge there. So all I had to do was take my belt sander, hit that sucker pretty good, and man, oh man, it is flat. So I think it's all prepped, ready to go to extend the main line from way over there to way back there. One other thing that I did that's very exciting stuff is, if you can see back here, I've got this piece of OSB in, and it's presently not the shape it's going to be when we're done. What I want to do is I want to get the loop around there at the end, see how it traverses back onto the layout, and then see how I want to cut that final edge to really make it look cool, at least in my hobby room. So anyway, that's the lay of the land. I say we get to work on laying out some track, and to do that, we're going to go over there. And here we are over on this part of the layout. So, like I said, we're gonna get the main line going down here. We're gonna use the old track zone method, which if you haven't been introduced to that, you're gonna be introduced to it in this episode. Very exciting stuff. I invented it. That's right, because that's how I rail, baby. One thing I need to keep in mind though is, you see this backdrop is on a cleat, is what I'm calling it. Some would call it like a plate or something, whatever. It's a piece of wood on my wall. And I need to make sure I confirm the distance this backdrop is away from that drywall. And here's why. I want to know where the backdrop sits so I can go 10 feet of, I don't know, some kind of flats we're going to put in there or something, and then 10 feet of right of way to the track itself. So that's like 20 scale feet plus whatever this is, and that's going to determine where the main line goes. So the first thing we need to do is get back up in here and take a quick measurement. Just doing kind of a shotgun method. I'll put my square up there against the wall. It looks to be about 7/8 of an inch. So I don't know, for safety, I'm gonna call it an inch. I like it. I like calling it an inch. So an inch away from the wall all the way down is where the backdrop's gonna be. And then we want our 20 scale feet. Let's figure that out. Got the scale out here. I'm just gonna put it up against my measuring device, and it says that 20 scale feet is, roughly an inch and a half. Inch and a half works. So now we got 2.5 inches to the edge of the railroad ties, but to figure that out, to get to the center of the track, we'll measure this out real quick, and I get, 4 feet. 4 scale feet. So we got 2.5 inches plus, I'm looking at this, 1/4 of an inch. So 2.5 plus 1/4, 2 3/4 inches. Look at that. That's how we do math over here, people. So I know then, or I believe I know, that I want the center of this back track to be 2 3/4 inches from the wall. So what I'm gonna do is go through and put a mark there, I don't know, down there, see if I can find some string, tie between it, and just go ahead and mark a line all the way down there that says, keep off, bro, because back there is other stuff. So anyway, let's get that going. So I got the line all the way down here. So now what I want to do is figure out the maximum turn I can get away with. So to do that, put my tape measure in, looks like 36 inches right there. But the thing is, we're going to lose 2.5 down there on that end, and I want to keep it 1.5 inches away from that end. So that's 4 inches off of 36 is 32 inches. So if I went from, and what's half of 32, by the way, 16. So if I went 16 inches from this mark in the back right here, right up to here, that's gonna be, looks like, the middle of my pivot point. But then I need to find out the distance to bring it this way. So it's gonna be a similar deal, I think. To do that, I think what I'll do is I'll make a line back here against this wall, similar to what we did going that way. I'll put a mark at 2 3/4, climbing in, people. That's me blocking the shot. Right, that's 2 3/4 there. And wow, I gotta crawl way back in there. Oh, I'm too old for this. 2 3/4 there. So far, I haven't banged my head. I know you are so sorely impressed by that right now. Let's bring in a straight edge. Set it back in there. And then it's gonna be tough to see, I think, people, but I'm gonna make me a mark. All right, there you go. So my intention is like right about here, the track would be on that line, period, and on that line. So now we just gotta connect the dots. We said we were looking for 16 inches, right? So I'm gonna climb in there again, bear with me. Oh my God. Did I mention the part about being too old for this? All right, so I'm gonna go put a mark at 16 inches here, 16 inches right there, and then over here, oops, I can't hardly see it here. 16 inches there. All right, so if I put this here, right angle to that, and I come out 16 inches. I got a pivot point right there. Let's double check. Ow. That was loud underneath here, people. Yeah, double check. We go back over to here, line it up. Best we can, I guess. And 16 inches that way. Oh my gosh. This model railroading stuff's hard work. Look, 16 inches there to there. That is my pivot point. Let's see what happens if we look at 16 inches from there, leaving us, well, yeah, it's not the 1.5 inches we were after. I don't know what the heck I did wrong there. That's 32, 16, 32. Well, whatever. That's what we're gonna do. That means right out here, it's gonna be out here pretty far. I'll tell you what, just to be safe, what do you say we cheat that back another 1/2 inch? Just because I don't want to deal with it. What if my trains fall off the railroad? That's not good. So I'm gonna come back 1/2 inch here. And 1/2 inch here. Line those up. Puts me. All right. Anyway, we're gonna call that right there. We're gonna call that the new pivot point, okay? So to get this done, it's something a little wacky, but then again, it's my railroad. I drilled a hole in this 1x3 right here. I drilled this hole, and then I put a drywall screw through there, sticking out. Now here's what I'm gonna attempt to do, all right? Don't try this at home. I'll put that drywall screw right on that intersection. And screw it down so that moves like that. It looks pretty good actually at this point. Now I made the hole at the end of this 1x3 big enough to receive a Sharpie. Should just be able to put it in like that. And then just draw that arc around and I think we'll be good. Let's give that a shot. I apologize if I blocked the camera here a little bit, but it's kind of tough to get in there and show you what I'm doing, but we're gonna give it a shot. So hopefully by just doing this, I'm getting, well, it's not exactly accurate, people, but it's an arc. Like that. Not bad. However, if I'd have cut this piece of wood off shorter, I could have made a better arc. You know, give me a second, I'm gonna go lop that off and then we're gonna put it back in and finish the arc. Boom, got that done. Let's finish this arc. And there you go. There is a circle representing the turnaround loop for this part of the layout. So that's new and exciting. I think what we want to do now is going through and lay out the track zone. Well, okay, so we've got that arc down there and that's looking pretty good, I guess. We'll find out soon enough, won't we? But now it's time to take a look at what's coming down the road. When this loop ends over here, it actually is the exit for the arrival departure track for the yard down there by the port. So I need to allow for that, but it is also the second track in from the edge of the layout because the first track in is the one that actually feeds the port, and we're gonna get to that a little bit later. So what I decided I'll do is grab my little square here and grab my little marker, and we've already established down there, rule of thumb, we're trying to keep the center of that track. I don't know, I got 2 inches there. It's enough. If the cars tip over or whatever and they derail, I don't want them falling on the floor. So right here, I'm cheating. I'm gonna go 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna put a mark here at 1.5 inches. Don't worry about it, it's gonna look good. So I come in 1.5 inches, 1.5. That'll be the center of that track. And then another 1.25 inches gets me to the center of the track up there. So we'll come down here, we'll put another 1.5 inches. Can you see me okay? Okay. Another 1.5 inches, and then another 1.25 inches, right? Those are 2 parallel tracks. One is the Portsmouth lead. It also acts as the tail track or the drill track for the yard to some degree. And then we have the arrival departure track right here. So just getting a handle on this, I want this turnout to some kind of way come off this curve and hit this track. And we want to do it in such a way that, well, I'd like to clear this if I can. Move it up a little bit more, maybe. That might make too big of an arc. It's going to go way the heck up there. That doesn't work for me. Go back there further. Okay. Hold on, people. We're going to try something different. Let's move that out of the way for a second. Lay this piece of track in here and just radius it on over to where it lands. And see right here, it's hanging off the layout. Now, I don't want to be coming out that far necessarily to hit that track. So the only way to change that is to make a tighter turn up here further. That's all we need to do. Well, I may have to get rid of my number 8 turnout if I'm going to pull this action off, people, because I need a sharper radius. Boy, that sucks. All right, anyway, it is what it is. Let's see what happens. We put this bad boy in there, put the number 6 turnout in, and that arc will come right up there. Well, I guess we'll just have to tell our conductors and crews, go slow so you don't come off the deal, the thing. So with that being the case, it kind of comes out like that, I think. All right, I think we're going for it, whatever. That's just the way I roll. But that means right here, I know I want this right here is where we start turning into the straight section of track. Now, let's try something else exciting. The double track main is going to end up back here once it clears that, and it's going to take off and have a good time. So, what do you say? Do something very similar to what we just did. We'll come up 1.25 inches, right there. All right, so I've got 1.25 inch mark right here, and I got one further back there. Take our little level and slam it in there. All right, look at that, double track main drawn out. And now, quite frankly, what I'm gonna call the regular guy way, I'm just gonna eyeball this now. All right, so there you go. That's the traversing track coming back to the double track main. Not certain how well you can see this in the video, but that's where those two lines intersect right there. What I wanna do is draw an angle out here to use as a pivot point, and then draw the same arc through here that we did over there. So I'm just gonna do the, I'm gonna do the Steve Brown shotgun method. I'm sure I learned this in school somewhere. We'll come out 3 inches. Right there, we'll come out 3 inches. Right there. Put a right angle here. That right angle over here and right there. Well, in theory, unless I just honked up, that should be the center point, the whatever you call it, the center point, the pivot point for the angle I want to put in right there. So all I should have to do now is actually draw me from that angle point through that intersection. Nice long straight line, like this, right? There's a whole lot of lines going on down there, people. Now, in theory, if I line that hole up on that line and put that on that line, I should be able to get the same angle over there. And I'm just eyeballing this, by the way, at a right angle to that. Needs to come just a little bit more. Right there, perhaps. You know, that's gonna be close enough for what we're doing. Let me screw that thing down, just like we did before. Some kind of way, we'll get it. All right, close enough. Let's move forward. Sharpie in hand, put it right where it goes there. Well, we're missing it by a margin. Well, that didn't work very well. I got like a 1/2 inch gap right here, and I'm trying to be a little more precise than that, my friends. So, part deux. My sort of horse trading method apparently isn't working so great. Just from here, where that hole is, we actually need it to go about a 1/2 inch further. Just right about there. Let's try it again. Boom, that came out perfect. All right, we're back down here on the port side of things, and I've got this turnout sitting right here. And this is the turnout that diverts the train into the arrival or onto the arrival departure track, which heads down that way. I measured it, it's roughly 7 feet of arrival departure track, but there's gonna be some spurs coming off of it for the yard. And the thing is, I don't really need to plan all that out right now to get my main line going. What I need to know is I've got this turnout set in such a way that when I set it, it stays there, okay? So here's what you see. You see sort of this S-turn coming down and hitting the arrival departure track. But then I also have this piece of track in here. This is the one, goes to this turnout here, and basically this turnout will feed the concrete silos over here for the port, and the diverging route takes it over to where the produce is and some of the other port stuff. Anyway, so I just want to sort of make sure that we can ultimately make that work, and it looks pretty good. So, you know, Bob's your uncle. I think it's time now to start laying some track. Well, rail fans, I guess that's just about all the time we have in this episode. Man, I sure had a lot of fun making progress, laying that out the regular guy way. I hope you enjoyed watching that. Hey, next week what I'm trying to get done is to get the road bed in and get the track in, a couple of tortoise switch motors to control getting on and off the main line. And I'm also hopefully going to show you the two DS64s and the BD4s I have on the back of the layout. That, in addition to sensing where the trains are, run some of my turnouts. So make sure and tune in next week for that. But thank you so much for joining me today on It's My Railroad. And until next time, my name is Steve Brown. Rail on, my friends.